Challenges in practice between business and community. In the past, many companies saw community work as something seasonal, almost like a charitable activity, something done occasionally. A donation to a local clinic, food baskets distributed during Ramadan, or sponsoring a single event and moving on. These actions had symbolic value, but they were rarely built on strategy and almost never on long-term commitment. Most of the time, they were closer to public relations, focused on image, not on lasting change. Today, the reality is very different. Communities are more aware, more informed, and far more vocal about what they expect. People are no longer satisfied with seasonal donations or short-lived celebrations. What they want now is deeper, more meaningful, and more honest. They want genuine partnerships built on mutual respect. They want a real voice in decisions that shape local development. They want to be recognized as active stakeholders with rights and responsibilities, not passive recipients of aid. And above all, they want solutions that address long-standing challenges in education, in health, in infrastructure, and in economic opportunity. Let me share a story from the field. In one mining region, a company organized a school celebration. Backpacks were distributed, school supplies were handed out. The event was cheerful. Local media covered it. Photos showed children smiling, holding their new bags with pride. But behind those images, the real problems remained. Classrooms were overcrowded, learning was difficult. The school infrastructure was weak. Basic equipment was missing. Within weeks, frustration began to grow in the community. What was first welcomed as a kind gesture slowly began to feel different. It started to feel like image management, not real problem solving. Trust began to erode, and trust, once lost, is one of the hardest things to rebuild. This is one of the greatest risks a company can face when seeking its social license to operate. The lesson is clear. Real social impact is not measured by the number of gifts given or by how much money is donated. It is measured by listening, careful listening, to what the community actually needs. It is measured by co-design, designing initiatives together, not for people, but with them. It is measured by addressing root causes, not surface symptoms, and by measuring results, reviewing them transparently over time. Now, let's talk about social vulnerability. This concept is often misunderstood. When we hear the word vulnerability, many of us think of extreme poverty, disability, or marginalized groups. But reality on the ground is far more complex. Vulnerability is not fixed. It is not permanent. It changes. It can affect different groups at different times, depending on economic conditions, social dynamics, or environmental shifts. In one mining region, a project expanded rapidly. An unexpected economic boom followed. Demand for housing surged. Rental prices rose sharply at unprecedented levels. What happened next surprised everyone. Nurses, the backbone of the health system. Teachers, the shapers of the next generation. University students, the future workforce. All of them, despite being part of a stable middle class, suddenly could not afford housing. They became vulnerable. Not because they were poor, not because they lacked skills, but because new economic pressures emerged in their local context. This tells us something important. Vulnerability is not limited to groups we traditionally label as marginalized. Any group can become vulnerable when conditions shift suddenly. Traditional indicators are often too narrow. They fail to capture what is really happening in a community. Vulnerability is dynamic, context-based, and it cannot be reduced to stereotypes or rigid definitions. For companies, especially those operating in high-impact sectors like mining, understanding vulnerability is critical. It helps identify indirect impacts like rising housing prices or pressure on health and education services. It allows companies to act early before small issues turn into major crises, and it supports the design of more inclusive initiatives that consider groups who may not be vulnerable today but could become so tomorrow. Vulnerability is not a permanent label. It is shaped by external forces, and it requires flexible responses. That is why any serious approach to community development or social performance must remain adaptive, sensitive to local realities, and capable of recognizing emerging risks early. Now, let's be very clear about the cost of ignoring communities. Some still believe that satisfying the community is simply a courtesy or a charitable gesture, something that can be postponed in favor of production and profit. The facts tell a different story. The community is not a secondary stakeholder. It is central to operational stability and to business continuity. In the mining sector alone, global companies have lost more than $20 billion in a single year due to conflicts with local communities. These losses were not caused by governments or by market volatility. They were caused by resistance from the communities themselves. That resistance took many forms: production stoppages, sit-ins, open-ended strikes, road blockades, disrupted supply chains, intense media pressure. All effective, all costly. The message is clear. Treating the community as a partner is not optional. It is essential for risk management. The losses are multidimensional. Direct financial losses, millions of dollars per day, especially in large projects. Legal and regulatory consequences, suspended permits, stricter regulations, heavy fines. Reputational damage, loss of trust. And once trust is broken, rebuilding it is slow, difficult, and expensive. In some cases, companies have been forced to exit entire markets after losing their social license to operate. The lesson is unmistakable. Ignoring the community is not only an ethical failure, it is a serious economic risk. Investing in relationships, in dialogue, in genuine partnership is not an extra cost. It is strategic insurance. Communities today have real power. Grassroots mobilization, digital media, public pressure. They cannot be ignored. And finally, there is the practitioner's dilemma between commitment and burnout. From the outside, working in social impact can look inspiring, even noble. In reality, it is demanding, complex, and emotionally heavy. Practitioners often stand in the middle of a difficult equation: urgent community demands, immediate expectations, jobs, healthcare, education, water, housing. At the same time, organizational pressure, quick results, clear numbers, positive narratives. And layered on top of that, personal responsibility, a deep moral commitment to the community struggles. This combination can be exhausting: mental fatigue, emotional strain, a sense of isolation, burnout. Practitioners often act as bridges between communities and leadership without consistent support on either side. The way forward is not perfection, it is balance. Social change is not captured in quarterly reports. It unfolds over time, step by step, with learning, with correction, with patience. True impact cannot be rushed. It grows through small wins, built steadily over time. Support networks matter: trusted colleagues, mentors, peers. Expectation management matters: with leadership and with communities. Impact takes time: inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes. Clarity matters: milestones, responsibilities, timelines. And self-care matters: no one can serve a community well while exhausted. Boundaries are necessary. Reflection is necessary. A culture that allows asking for help is necessary. These are not luxuries. They are conditions for sustainable impact. With patience, with support, with clarity, and with care, balance becomes a daily practice, and impact becomes deeper, more meaningful, and more lasting.